Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a graphic nature and in graphic detail and may not be suitable for children under 13. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 7 of our 7 Deadly Sins 7-day countdown to Halloween, which means tonight is Halloween.
Yeah.
Woo! Yes. What are you guys doing what are your plans for Halloween? Obviously, we're not recording this on Halloween, but so what are you guys' plans for Halloween? Silence.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut anybody off, and I wanted to make sure that
So
if
that's a
Joyce had
first.
if Joyce had this, big plan she wanted to
No, I can't
announce,
fucking walk. So actually, I'm doing nothing. I'm probably gonna watch a
Yeah.
scary movie.
you're gonna sit on the porch and hand out candy, right?
Actually, in my neighborhood, I might get some trick-or-treaters. So actually,
There
that
you
would
go.
be fun. I
Oh,
should do
wow.
that. You're right.
It's funny because I live in a pretty good neighborhood overall, but we didn't have any trick-or-treaters last year. So that's a
Wow.
little weird. Yeah, none. We ended up leaving a bowl out because we went out and we came back and there was not a single piece missing.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, we
wow.
thought the whole bowl was going to be gone, but nope, nothing. So I don't know
That's crazy.
yeah, I don't actually have plans other than to wear my costume to work today.
Okay.
Oh, well, you gotta tell us, what's the costume?
It's kind of like this weird steampunk kind of wizard robe. It's burgundy with black and buckles, and I get to wear my like heavy metal biker boots with them because they have skulls on them. So it'll be
Wait,
interesting.
so who are you dressing as? Just a vibe?
Yeah, I'm just because I work in the food industry, I can't do anything particular, and I have to have both my hands, and I can't have makeup on my face or anything like that. So
Fair enough.
yeah, I have to be accessible, but at the same time, I can sort of dress up. So it's a little different.
I've been thinking about dressing up as David S. Pumpkins. That's what I've been planning on.
That's so funny.
Okay.
I was on the Kiss cruise back in 2019, and there was a guy because that usually happens around Halloween, and there was a guy who was not only dressed as David S. Pumpkins, but he had jean makeup on with the jean wig.
Stop.
And
That's iconic.
yeah, and so of course I got a photo with him because I was like, I have to. It's Gene S. Pumpkins.
Janus pumpkins. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Oh,
All right, so tonight we are covering the deadly sin of lust, the final one, and like I said
Oh
last
boy.
episode, probably the one I've engaged in the most.
work.
Right? So I was going to
It's
say
a fun one.
So at the end of all this, we've covered every deadly sin, and we're not talking about the cases, but what would you say is your favorite deadly sin? Not the case, the sin itself.
Lust.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is certainly the most fun, I would say.
But lately, it's been sloth.
But not by choice.
Well, a little bit by choice.
That's true. That's true. That's funny. All right, so then I guess tonight we'll get into lust, and I wish I could say this is a fun lust, but it is not the fun kind.
Oh boy.
Oh. Wah, wah.
Yeah. So here we go with the teaser on this one, which is really kind of a curveball for everything else that's going to happen in this. Imagine this. You're a young boy, smaller than the rest of your peers. You're shy, and you want to feel like you're not only part of the group, but really accepted by them. So the leader of like your youth group, a respected adult in the community, tells you that he knows of an experiment that will help you. This experiment.
Okay, I can picture it. It's me. I'm the little boy.
Yeah, I can see that. So this experiment, which this adult has said he's done many times, will extend your spine and make you taller.
Oh dear God.
And all you have to do is let him hang you by your neck.
What?
I don't like how that combines with lust. That makes me feel weird.
It should, yes. This is the crazy case of Anatoly Slivko, who you will see is the embodiment of the deadly sin of lust. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yikes. I'm afraid already.
Yeah, this is a fucked up one. I told
Well,
you.
happy fucking Halloween.
I told you lust was going to be brutal. So,
Right.
Anatoly Slivko was born on December 28th, 1938 in the Ukraine, which at the time was under Russian control as part of the USSR. He was the oldest of two children born to parents that were in severe poverty. At the time of Slivko's birth, the Ukraine was in the grip of a famine caused by Stalin's forced seizure of agricultural goods. The marriage between his parents was not a healthy one. There were frequent arguments and fighting, and it certainly didn't help that his father was an alcoholic.
Never does.
No, it never does. I mean, I can't imagine a situation where that helps, period.
No.
Slivko was intelligent, but he was also sickly as a child, and he suffered from insomnia and several childhood illnesses.
Hmm.
That's an awful combination.
He was also a loner and described his childhood as plagued by instability, hunger, war, and poverty. When the Soviet Union entered the Second World War, Slivko's father was conscripted into the Red Army. Slivko himself witnessed many atrocities committed by the Nazis following their invasion of the Soviet Union, including their invasion of his hometown in 1943. I can't imagine knowing there were Nazis in your own city, like running around like that.
Yeah, that's got to be awful.
One of the most graphic wartime memories that he has was when he was seeking shelter with 4 other children in a cemetery to escape German bombing raids.
Oh, God.
However, these children that he was hiding with pushed him aside because they were repulsed by his emaciated appearance.
Well, that's just fucked up.
God.
So he had to find another place to hide where he was able to curl up in a ball. And where he was forced to hide, he had a clear view of mutilated remains of a woman and a horse that had been strewn across a nearby street.
Oh, God.
Holy fucking shit.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is so traumatic.
It's a brutal fucking childhood. And obviously, a lot of people went through that, and not all of them turned into what this guy's going to fucking be.
Mm-hmm.
But you can sort of see, not that you sympathize with the killer, but you can sort of sympathize with the child here. Like he's going through some shit.
Yeah, for real.
Especially the other kids just being dicks and pushing him out of where they were hiding.
Yeah, it's like it's bad enough.
Yeah, like I again, kids can sometimes be cruel.
Yeah, right, I mean, their brains aren't developed. Yeah.
This is a life or death kind of situation. Like, fuck
Agreed.
looks,
Agreed. But I mean, it's tough to say how these kids, I mean, they're obviously, we're not raised like they are. Who knows? They may not even have thought this was that life and death kind of thing. They may not understand the concept. So in school after the war, Slivko performed academically poorly. Even though he was intelligent, he kind of lacked commitment to his studies, and he had a propensity for daydreaming in class that resulted in him getting average grades, which, I can relate to. Not gonna lie. When he reached puberty, Slivko realized that he was a homosexual, and he also discovered that he suffered from erectile dysfunction. Both discoveries deeply shamed Slivko, who kept his sexuality and sexual dysfunction a secret from his family and his close friends. I want to say 2 things here. One, of course, you're going to keep your sexual dysfunction a secret from your family and friends.
Yeah. Hey, Mom, I can't get it up.
Yeah, I can't keep it up. What's going on? That one. That was a weird. Like, as I was researching it, that was a weird thing where they were describing him. But obviously, it comes into play later. And obviously, this is, right after World War II. Most places, homosexuals weren't welcome. So
in the USSR.
And it's still illegal in Russia today.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see where anyone would have kept that to themselves if they wanted to live through that time period.
100%.
So in an effort to escape his humble origins, Slivko applied for a scholarship at the Moscow State University shortly after he graduated from school in 1956, but he failed the entrance exam. Shortly thereafter, he began his compulsory military service and was deployed to the Russian Far East, which I imagine would be like Kamchatka, like that area out that way.
Yeah.
And compared to where the Ukraine is, that is a long way away.
That's like halfway across the world, practically. That's really far.
Yeah, you're not near anybody you know. Like it's probably really cold up there.
Yeah, and probably no contact with back home.
Right. And he was frequently subjected to mockery and ridicules from his comrades, who derided him for his timid and submissive personality, which obviously Yeah, which obviously doing that isn't going to make someone less timid.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not trying to fucking help him, that's for sure.
No, and just knowing how men think, they probably think it's funny. Like, oh, man up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for the younger guy.
Yeah.
His superiors concluded that Slivko was, quote, incompatible with military life, unquote, and he was discharged from the Soviet army officially due to health issues in 1960, prior to him actually completing his service. So even the military doesn't want him. Just
That's
Poor
really sad.
guy.
yeah. So in 1961, Slivko relocated to Stavropolsky Krai, where he found employment as a telephone engineer. And for
Is
the
this closer to where he's from, or?
yeah, it's close. Yeah, it's closer to the Ukraine.
Gotcha.
And I did have to. I asked a Russian friend of mine for correct pronunciations of these cities. So let's see how I do.
Hell yeah. Good job. Proud of you.
Thanks. That one was the easy one.
Let's go.
Now, his younger sister also relocated to the same city, obtaining employment in a local factory. In 1962, Slivko's sister, having become concerned about her brother's introverted lifestyle and his lack of interaction with women, introduced him to a young colleague of hers named Ludmila. The two began dating and married in a modest ceremony the following summer, so
Wow.
1963.
He
Yeah.
got his beard.
What? I don't get
Do you not know
that.
what that means?
No, I don't get it.
So a beard is if like when a gay man marries someone or when a gay person marries someone of the opposite gender, and
Oh,
it's to
okay.
cover up basically. So like your beard would cover up your face. It like covers up the fact that you're gay.
Oh, all right. I was completely unfamiliar with that term, but it makes
Oh,
sense
well.
once you explained it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a beard, yeah.
And it's like whether or not that person knows that they are a beard or not.
Which also makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think some people are in such denial, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Always getting
shortly
your queer education from your representative.
No, but that's good though. Like not only for me, but for our listeners as well. Like
Absolutely.
I don't know much. Like I hate to say it. Although I was listening to another podcast where the person who committed the crime, similar to one that we've covered, where the person who committed the crime had transitioned genders.
Mm-hmm.
And but this person, upon the first part of this podcast, it was a two-parter, kept referring to the individual as a he, even though the person had since transitioned.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until he had an interview with someone at the end of the first part where he learned that, where the person.
Oh, yep.
So they were like, so they kind of at the start of the second one, the second part, they apologized and said, I didn't know it at the time that I recorded that. And, you know, so, and since then, moving forward, the person was referred to as a she, but it was still like
Mm-hmm.
an interesting moment where you have to know it. And if you don't know it, then, you know, so I don't know. So it's kind of
Know
going
better,
back.
do better. That's what we always say.
Right. And like I said, with the episode that we did, which was the one on Wrath, I knew ahead of time, so we were able to do it, and there was no
Mm-hmm.
problem. And the few times I did make a mistake, you corrected me, but I think I edited those out.
Yes.
So there you go. Okay, back to what we were doing.
Anyway.
Shortly after their wedding, the couple relocated to the city of Nevinomysk, where they soon established reputations as upstanding members of the community. And let me tell you, Nevinomysk is spelled insanely, but we'll leave it at that. I literally had to write it down phonetically.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I still maintain we should have a full episode where it's just you pronouncing things.
That's just cruel. Only if only all three of us get to participate.
Yeah, that sounds like torture.
Yeah, it's not fun. So according to Slivko, although he cared for his wife, his sexuality obscured any physical attraction to her, and his erectile dysfunction limited their intercourse to brief episodes that he termed as, quote, quick, humiliating coupling, unquote.
Oh man,
that's
a
rough.
rough way to put it.
Yeah.
But at least he's honest about it.
Yeah, I guess.
Quick and humiliating. That's just, yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, that's really tough.
On one occasion, he did seek medical help to overcome his inability to sustain an erection in the presence of a female. However, he also witnessed a young nurse discreetly laughing at his predicament, which essentially assured that he would never seek help again from any kind
Mm-hmm.
of professional. Which sucks because had this moment never happened, there's a small chance the rest of this story may not have taken place.
Aw.
The
However,
smallest things really can just set the whole rest of the plan in motion.
yeah, butterfly wings, man.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there is, because there's a bigger moment for him coming up here. So had even if he didn't have this happen, even if he did keep going back to the doctor and whatever, they gave him his little blue pill kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I still, if he witnessed this next moment, I don't know that it would have stopped it, but it's possible that it could have set him down a different path and maybe he wouldn't have been there to witness this. So, with that said,
Yikes.
Slivko later admitted to investigators that he and Ludmila had engaged in intercourse no more than 10 times throughout their 17-year marriage.
Wow.
Yeah.
And those were quick, humiliating couplings.
Yes. And after the birth of their second child, they stopped all.
They managed to get
So wait,
pregnant.
they
Yeah.
still managed to be able to do that?
Yeah, apparently. They had 2 kids together, and according to him, they
Okay,
only did it,
fertility.
right? They
Oh,
only did it
wow.
like 10 times. My guess is he must have had a lot like held back.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. So now for that precise moment that changed the course of Slivko's life for the worst. In 1961, Slivko witnessed a traffic accident in which a drunken motorcyclist swerved onto the pavement and into a group of pedestrians. It fatally injured a boy who was in his early teens who was wearing a young pioneer's uniform. Picture Boy Scouts.
Mm-hmm.
Something about this boy's suffering stirred something inside Slivko.
Oh.
Oh boy.
For reasons he would later insist he could never explain, this scene had sexually excited him, triggering a powerful orgasm in the moment.
Whoa.
What in the fucking fuck?
He later recalled the accident vividly. Quote, "The boy had experienced convulsions and death throes as the smell of gasoline and fire permeated the air. The boy looked so helpless, especially in his uniform. It reminded me of how I felt inside myself after a childhood of pain and suffering. Each time he cried out in agony, I became more excited. By the time of the boy's death, I became oblivious to everyone else apart from that boy." Unquote.
That is
Holy shit.
Yeah.
what the fuck. I have nothing to say to that. Just
That's
Yeah.
wow.
It's fucked up.
that's like one of the worst things I've ever heard.
You know, you hear a lot about fetishes, right? And I'm not a fetish shamer. Do your thing. You know, we
No
kind of
kink
joked.
shaming.
Yeah, we kind of joked about Matthew Hoffman, and he was rumored to have a thing for trees. You know, all well and good. This isn't even close to okay.
No.
This is beyond. It's so fucked up.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Well, yes, obviously, but like this is just I can't even fathom the idea of getting aroused at something like this.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
horrific.
So having achieved orgasm, Slivko walked approximately 20 yards towards a nearby bus shelter where he sat down and continued to stare at the deceased teenager who remained pinned beneath the motorcycle as emergency services arrived at the scene. According to Slivko, he experienced arousal, elation, and a sense of empowerment as he sat and contemplated the suffering that teenager had endured before his death.
Who does he tell this to? Did he write a book, or is this like an interrogations or like
after his arrest, he spoke to investigators.
Wow.
We're going to get to that later, but he actually cooperates with investigators in Russia to help them catch another serial killer.
Whoa.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
All right, the plot thickens.
So Slivko would later describe his witnessing that traffic accident as the most pivotal moment of his entire life. Prior to witnessing that accident, he had repressed his sexuality. After witnessing it, he developed an overwhelming desire to engage in physical sexual relations with young men.
Ugh.
You'd think that had developed earlier, just as a man, and you kind of have that drive to engage in physical sexual relations with the object of your desire. But apparently,
Yeah,
a normal man wasn't enough. It had to be suffering.
Oh my God.
ugh.
Furthermore, the sight of blood on the teenager's shoes further compounded a developing shoe fetish, and he began incorporating boys' footwear into his masturbatory fantasies.
Oh dear God.
It's
Mhm.
fucking bizarre.
What?
Yeah. It's again, I have no words.
Oh,
Within months of witnessing this accident, Slivko went and established a youth group in his town of Navinomysk.
oh dear God.
Ostensibly, the club was established to encourage local boys to participate in young pioneer activities, although Slivko also soon began using the club as a means of befriending boys and developing methods to gain their trust. Obviously,
Oh, this
grooming.
is horrific. Yeah.
The first club was destroyed in an act of arson approximately 1 year after its establishment. Allegedly,
Whoa.
allegedly the perpetrator was one of the boys who attended the club and whom Slivko had either mistreated or molested, but no criminal charges were ever filed against that boy.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So nothing happened, or did
Nope.
they just not have enough?
No, there was a fire, and I think they know who did it, but like Slivko's obviously not gonna try to hold this kid accountable because he doesn't want anyone to hear what this kid has to say.
No, we don't want investigators around.
Right. Shortly thereafter, Slivko established a new club which he named Chergid. This youth club was based 3 miles from his home. Slivko's youth club activities aroused zero suspicion. The parents of boys who attended the club regularly bestowed praises upon him for devoting attention to their children and steering them away from trouble.
Oh, if they only knew.
Mm.
Slivko regularly took his young charges on hiking and hill climbing expeditions, with the expeditions frequently lasting for days at a time.
No.
Nobody can hear you scream.
Articles relating to the club's activities frequently appeared in local newspapers and on radio. So he was gaining local kind of fame for this.
Wow.
Slivko also granted several interviews with local TV outlets and even received commendation from local Communist Party officials for his ongoing efforts to educate, entertain, and morally nurture the town's youth.
Oh, God.
Yeah, talk about a fucking cover and a half.
Truly.
I mean, think about Soviet Russia at that time. I doubt most people were really going out of their way like this. So he obviously stands out.
Right.
Yeah, just crazy because hiding in plain sight is just nuts. In 1977, and this is jumping in the future here, Slivko would be elected deputy of the city council and awarded the title of honored teacher of the Soviet Union.
Whoa.
But that's in
Wow.
the future. We're still
That's
in
fucking nuts.
1963 here. This is 1977. So that gives you an idea of how long this is going to go on for.
Oh
He's
my
playing the
God.
long game.
So by June of 1963, Slivko had devised a routine whereby he could physically relieve the erotic fantasies sparked by his 1961 traffic accident. Once or twice a year, he would form a close friendship with a boy at the youth club, typically between the ages of 11 and 15, but never older than 17. Yeah. 11 to 15.
A child.
Yeah.
That's a fucking baby. That's so gross.
Now, the boy would be short for his age and would be wearing a young pioneer's uniform, just like the boy Slivko had seen die in the traffic accident. Slivko would gain the boy's confidence and tell him of an experiment he knew and that involved a controlled hanging to stretch his spine that would make the boy taller.
Is this a specific incident or this is part of his routine?
This is the routine. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, just wait.
Ooh.
what the fuck?
Slivko would film these hangings. After the boy was assured that he'd be safe, Slivko would revive him from a state of unconsciousness.
Holy
Oh.
crap.
Prior to each boy undertaking this experiment, Slivko would harmlessly rehearse the hanging scene with his intended victim in order to, further gain his confidence. He would then purchase a new uniform for the victim to wear and shine his shoes before enacting the hanging.
Oh, I
No.
hate it.
No. Oh God.
In addition, to prevent any vomiting, the victim would be required not to eat for several hours before the experiment. Can you see how
What
much
the-
practice?
How is he coming up with this shit? Oh my God.
My guess is practice.
Uh,
Once the boy had placed the noose around his own neck, he was anesthetized by inhaling ether and would become unconscious. Slivko would strip him naked, caress and fondle him, arrange the body in suggestive
Oh.
positions, and repeatedly masturbate, frequently onto the shoes.
Oh. Ugh.
Oh God, that's disgusting. Oh, that's
Yeah.
really fucking awful. These poor kids.
The entire process would
Oh,
invariably be filmed by Slivko on one of his 16 millimeter cameras and retained to fuel his future erotic fantasies. To allay any parental concern as to their son's participation in these home movies, their parents were informed their sons would be in an educational video.
Oh, that's a sad cover up.
oh, that's so
Well-
disgusting.
Well, here's the crazy part. Slivko was also known in the community for having created several amateur documentaries with his equipment and the troops, like the little boys. So he was already developing that cover as well.
Now, did he already create the
Ugh.
vid? Because I mean, if you were a parent, wouldn't you want to see the video? Did he have it already made?
He probably had other videos.
Yeah, he's making many documentaries with the troops, like both, I would assume, recruitment videos and things to show what they're doing and how they're helping the community. So he's out there doing all this stuff, and that's his cover. So when the boy just says, "Yeah, I'm meeting up with, whatever, Comrade Slivko," he's not going to tell him the details. He's just saying, "We're making a movie." You guys
I
are
hate
so
it.
quiet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh,
I
no,
just
I'm
I hate it so much.
I'm at a loss for words here. I just stunned.
Yeah, this is a fucked up case. I told you. I warned you.
Yeah, that makes it so much better.
It does a little. You could have chose not to join. Actually, no. We're kind of all addicted to this. I think this is fun. Okay. Although many of the boys Slivko initially persuaded to participate in these home movies were restrained and hung inside or within the vicinity of the Chergid area, by the mid-1960s, he actually begun to persuade victims to participate in these films out in increasingly rural areas, often without their parents' knowledge.
Ooh.
Again, goes back to something we said episodes ago. Everything escalates. They're never satisfied with it how it is. It always escalates.
No.
So over the course of 22 years, Slivko persuaded 43 boys to partake in this experiment.
Jesus Christ.
In 36 cases, following his established ritual of photography, filming, and repeated masturbation, Slivko revived these boys. Cautioned by Slivko into silence, these individuals resumed their lives unaware of what had happened to them while they were unconscious.
Oh, that's so disturbing.
However, in 7 cases, Slivko's behavior became violent.
Oh God.
We're about to discuss those 7.
Oh.
Once these victims were unconscious, he extensively dismembered their bodies, poured gasoline on their limbs and torso, set the remains on fire to remind himself of that traffic accident that had sparked his arousal. Slivko typically retained the victim's shoes as mementos, as well as the photographs and films he had developed in a home laboratory.
Mm.
In addition, Slivko meticulously recorded details of each hanging, fatal or otherwise, in his diaries, which is fucking nuts. Who does that?
Oh man, he's just making so much record of it. It's ugh.
The shoes, pictures, and films served as stimuli for Slivko's masturbatory fantasies for months or years until he needed fresher stimuli and killed again.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so get ready. Here we
I
go.
hate it.
On June 2nd, 1964, Slivko killed his first victim, a 15-year-old runaway named Nikolai Dobryshev. Slivko claimed this particular victim was killed unintentionally, as he had been unable to revive the boy upon completion of his routine of filming, photography, masturbation. Although he later admitted in one interview with a psychiatrist that the teenager's death triggered a greater sense of arousal within him than his previous non-fatal hangings. Regardless of that, the sense of shock at the death of his victim drove Slivko to dismember the boy's body and discard the remains in the Kuban River.
Oh.
What kind of excitement did he get out of that? I mean, I'm sure that must have sent him through the freaking roof.
Yeah, I would assume power and control. Oh, you mean of the dismembering? Yeah,
Yeah.
He didn't talk about what he got out of that.
Or maybe he didn't. Maybe that was the ultimate result of all the other things he'd done, is he had to do something about it.
All right,
Yeah,
makes
possibly.
sense.
Yeah.
Who knows?
He also destroyed the film and photographs he had taken of this particular victim, although he did keep the boy's shoes. Can't let the shoes go.
God.
So in May of 1965, Slivko befriended his second victim, Alexei Kovalenko, at his youth club. This victim was killed intentionally, with Slivko retaining all footage and imagery of the hanging, molestation, and mutilation. Slivko probably felt untouchable after getting away with the first one, so he just decided to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Alexei was reported missing, although his parents were informed by police that their child was a runaway.
Runaway.
Of course.
Yep, even in Russia, they can't
We've
be
seen
bothered.
it too many times.
Oh, that's so sad.
8 years later, on November 14th, 1973, 15-year-old Alexander Nesmayanov disappeared in that same town.
You're going by first names for this one, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Well, they're also not the perpetrator. So Alexander, who was another member of Chergid, had recently befriended Slivko prior to his disappearance. You think everyone would see this coming, but
yeah, but it sometimes takes a while before you notice a pattern like that.
Slivko actively participated in the search for Alexander in the weeks that followed his murder. He even printed missing person posters and mobilized ground searches. And he made sure that the ground searches never went anywhere near the murder location.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what you can do when you can insert yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
2 years later, on May 11th, 1975, another member of Slivko's youth club, 11-year-old Andrei Pogasyan, also disappeared. The boy was last seen by a neighbor who informed police that Andrei had told them that he was going to participate in a film in the forest. Although the boy did not mention Slivko by name. Andrei's mother did inform investigators Slivko had shot a partisan film in a nearby forest in which her son had previously participated. However,
all right, we're getting closer.
Police already knew Slivko had won awards for his other more innocuous films, and he was eliminated as a suspect following brief questioning. He admitted that he knew the boy because of his youth club, but denied that he had any involvement in his disappearance.
Of course.
In 1980, Slivko killed his fifth victim, 13-year-old Sergei Fatniev. He was also a member of Chergid, and by the time Slivko committed this murder, Slivko's sadism and lust had escalated to a degree in which he specifically rearranged this victim's dismembered body and shoes before his camera in order to fuel future fantasies.
Ew.
He's not just okay with rearranging their bodies when they're unconscious. Now they're dismembered and being rearranged.
Wow.
Ugh.
His diary entries denoting Sergei's murder, dismemberment, and the burning of his body and clothing also indicated a serious lack of shame for his actions, which obviously. The next victim, and man, this name is brutal. I almost don't even want to try to say it. Luckily, they're short because there's very little information on it. But his next victim was, oh my God, Vyacheslav Kovistik. He was 15.
That's tough.
Yeah, he was 15 and he was killed in the autumn of 1984.
Damn, this has been going on for so fucking long.
It's crazy. 22 years he gets away with this shit. On July 23rd, 1985, Slivko killed his final victim, 13-year-old Sergei Pavlov, who disappeared after telling a neighbor he was meeting the leader of Chergid to participate in a home movie.
Oh my God.
Although police informed Pavlov's mother her son was a runaway,
oh my God,
his parents remained unconvinced. 7 kids in 20 years disappear. And
in your one town.
In your one town, and they're all connected to this one guy, and nobody really thinks about it.
And they're all a similar age, and they're all boys. We're not suspicious about this. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, absolutely batshit crazy right there.
But he can't possibly be the one that did it. He has all these stellar things going for him.
Yeah, he's proved himself as the guy. So both police and Pavlov's parents questioned Slivko, but he denied any involvement. However, Sergei's mother's questioning of fellow Chergid members revealed several boys had participated in hanging experiments to stretch their spines in an effort to stimulate their growth at Slivko's insistence. And in each time, and every time the boys told them, they had lost consciousness. So following Sergei Pavlov's disappearance, a local prosecutor named Tamara Languyeva began actively investigating the boy's disappearance. So it took a prosecutor, not an investigator.
That's insane.
That's awful.
Her inquiries lasted several months, and by November of 1985, Tamara had discovered that several other boys who had attended the same youth club had also disappeared over the course of several years. Often, like Pavlov, having informed their relatives that they were going to participate in movies with Slivko. Although Tamara found no evidence of anything illegal in the way of the club, how it actually operated, her questioning of several boys did reveal that many members had agreed to be hanged into unconsciousness by Slivko. Like, how does that not come up with you in conversation with your parents at any point?
Like, right? Ever. Well, I guess it's the same way it always works with grooming, is that like, oh, don't tell your parents, it's a secret, shit like that. Like, yeah, oh, don't tell your parents or you'll be in trouble and I won't like you anymore. Shit like that. Yeah,
you'll be out of this cool club or something. Mm-hmm. Many of the current and former members of the youth club had also suffered temporary amnesia following their revival. At the recommendation of Tamara, a city prosecutor authorized a formal search of Slivko's home and the youth club in December of 1985.
I'm going to guess that this guy wasn't smart enough to hide and or destroy what little he had that could point to him for this.
I agree. I think he is too bold.
Yeah, I would not. I mean, I know what happened, but I agree with both of you. He feels untouchable. For 20 years, of course he thinks no one's going to ever catch him.
Yeah, he thinks, 100%.
So although little incriminating evidence was found at his home, they did find a locked dark room at the youth club. A search of that dark room revealed numerous photographs and films depicting the hangings, molestations, and occasionally the dismemberment of his victims.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. Oh, what a horrific thing to find. I can't even imagine, like, ooh.
Yeah, trying to...
being that investigator.
I was going to say, imagine being that investigator.
Horrific. Also recovered were numerous knives, axes, and coils of rope and rubber hoses. In addition to paraphernalia attesting to his shoe fetish, including several pairs of boys' shoes and boots, which had been completely sawed through the midfoot.
What
Just-
the fuck?
Yeah, that's fucking weird. I'm guessing maybe they were still wearing them when he cut through them. That's just weird.
Oh God.
Uh,
So-
I hate
sorry.
it so much.
Confronted with the evidence recovered from his darkroom, Slivko began confessing to the 7 murders and 36 non-fatal hangings on December 28th of that year.
Wow.
He blamed his crimes on the distress brought upon him by sexual frustration and
Are you
emphasized
for real?
the primary purpose of his retaining the snuff material and paraphernalia was both to fuel his erotic fantasies via a masturbation outlet and to relieve internal tension.
Bro,
Wow.
self-incrimination.
Right. But not only that, but can you imagine getting arrested for something here? And you're like, yeah, but I had to do it because I was, horny and stressed. That's essentially what he said. Like,
Yeah, he literally
Absolutely
said
not.
like, doesn't work, buddy.
that. No,
Yeah, no.
that's nope, not an excuse, buddy.
Slivko also claimed that initially he had hoped that his retaining of the photographs and films of his fatal hangings would suffice to prevent a resurface of that desire to commit future homicides. Although as time passed, the intervals between the urge to murder and dismember a new victim gradually increased.
You mean the
Again-
intervals decreased?
Oh, right. The amount of time passed. Yes, I'm sorry. I typed that
Oh
wrong.
yeah, okay. That's what I figured.
Yeah. So like, again, it's any other addiction. You need more of it faster as it wears off. His murder victims, he stated, had all been aged between 11 and 15, and he had gradually learned via the methodology of his successive crimes what he termed valuable lessons to minimize or destroy any incriminating evidence actually linking the murders to him. He admits that he's learning the whole thing. He's learning the whole process.
It's crazy because is this his continued boldness and thinking like, oh, I can just admit everything and it won't matter,
No, if
or
you
is he
rem-
just giving up and like I'm in prison forever?
No, if you remember, and we're about to get to this, but because the Russian authorities, I don't know if they were called the KGB or not, but they seek him out for help catching another serial killer. So he's very
right,
open with
right.
them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in March and April of 1986, Slivko led investigators to the dismembered and buried bodies of 6 of his victims, although he was unable to locate the body of his first victim because he had thrown those body parts in the Kuban River 20 years previously. So obviously, those are never going to be found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no.
If there's anything even left at this point. He was formally charged with all 7 murders, in addition to 7 counts of sexual abuse and 7 counts of necrophilia, and remanded into custody to await his trial. 7 counts of sexual abuse does not sound like enough.
Not at all.
No.
That sounds
you
very
fucking
light
kidding
for
me?
what he did.
That's nothing.
Well, now I want to know, because he's got necrophilia, sexual abuse. Do they not even take into consideration the boys who were choked into unconsciousness?
Right. Like
Apparently not.
assault and like physical and sexual assault.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Like, because they were unconscious, it didn't count. Because maybe he didn't actually penetrate their bodies, it didn't count. Like, it's so fucked
Insane.
up.
That's just twisted, though. That's not right at all.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense to me. Slivko's trial was held in Novonomisk in June of 1986. He pleaded not guilty to the charges, claiming all 7 deaths were accidental.
What the fuck?
What?
Yep.
How do you accidentally do? Oh, God.
Yep. He accidentally did all that. Bullshit.
I was really hoping for some kind of insanity or something.
I know
Like
you were waiting for that. Yeah.
I was. That's why when you paused, I was like, come on, insanity.
I paused expecting you to throw it out there.
I thought about it, but I hesitated.
So he was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to death later that same month and was incarcerated. Yeah, well, it's Russia. And he was
makes sense.
incarcerated in the Novocherkassk prison to await his execution. Slivko did lodge a formal appeal against his conviction with the Supreme Court of Russia, but this was rejected. At the request of a Rostov-based detective named Viktor Burikov, Slivko was asked by police to provide an insight into the minds of serial murderers in the weeks prior to his execution. Slivko agreed to this request and consented to both face-to-face interviews and handwritten correspondence with investigators who were actively seeking insight into the mind of the then unidentified serial killer active in and around the Rostov Oblast, known as the Forest Strip Killer, who had killed a minimum of 29 victims by the time they initiated contact with Slivko.
Whoa.
Now, I want to point out the odd similarities about Russia and the US in this case, because the US, the FBI, had met with serial killers to learn how they operated and how they thought in the 60s and 70s. And it's actually what the show Mindhunters is based on.
Oh,
So
interesting.
Yeah,
Absolutely awesome show.
It's an amazing show. And it's interesting to find that Russia is doing the same thing like 10 to 15 years behind us, but they suddenly have the same problem. So here they are. So Slivko did provide investigators with a deep insight into how offenders such as himself were able to function in society without detection or suspicion. The general quote unquote rules created insofar as to how their crimes were to be committed to achieve their desired outcome, and advice as to how to prevent the emergence of future offenders such as himself in Russian society or Soviet society.
Wow. They're going right to the source and trying to figure out what the fuck's going on.
Right. But interestingly, he did suggest that Soviet schools should provide adolescent students with greater knowledge and acceptance of sexuality, adding in one letter, quote, "If I had knowledge of sexual perversions, I might have gone to a doctor as soon as my first abnormal symptoms appeared," unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, he's probably talking about homosexuality, which is unfortunate, but he's not 100% wrong. If they know what's going on, they're less freaked out by it.
Right. And at least if he went to a doctor like about that, thinking that that was something wrong with him, he probably would have talked about his other inclinations too.
Correct.
If he went to some sort of therapist. Exactly. And it would have gotten help.
But he was never going to do that because that one nurse laughed at him.
Yep.
Crazy. However, Slivko knew little of the investigators' ongoing manhunt in the Rostov Oblast, and much of the actual evidence he provided on the specific case would prove to be incompatible or even incorrect. So he couldn't give insight into other killers, just how he worked, which makes sense. But he didn't really, I guess he couldn't grasp it. Because if you go back and look at what the FBI did with Edmund Kemper, they learned a lot from him. So this guy just didn't have the capacity that I guess Kemper had. Again, watch Mindhunter. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The then unidentified Rostov serial killer was named Andrei Chikatilo, who we will probably cover in a later future episode. He was arrested in November of 1990, and he would be convicted of killing 52 women and children.
Oh my God.
52. Chikatilo is probably the most famous killer in Russia.
Whoa, that's a lot. And just all women and children too.
Yeah.
They're really covering everything between the two of them.
I guess, I didn't even think of it. You're right. The only people that got away with it were middle-aged men. They weren't the victims here. So at the time of the investigator's final death row interview with Slivko, his scheduled execution was actually slated to take place within hours.
Whoa.
Yeah. So according to prosecutor Isla Kostoyev, upon conclusion of their final meeting, he deceived Slivko into believing that they would reconvene at a later date by shaking his hand and stating, "Next time, we'll talk in greater detail."
Whoa.
Wow.
So on September 16th, 1989, just hours after his final face-to-face interview, Slivko was taken from his death row cell to a soundproof room in the prison and executed by a single gunshot behind his right ear.
Damn, that's how they do it in Russia?
Yeah, they just brought him into a room and fucking popped him like the mafia.
Wow.
It's cheaper than what they usually do.
To be honest, yeah, that's probably one of the cheapest ways to do it. I mean, maybe a length of rope because you can reuse the rope.
There you go.
Well, you have to replace rope, and bullets aren't that expensive. I don't know. I
No,
think.
and the way they did it right behind his ear, like that's fast, quick, it's over. Yeah, like there's no ceremony in it. It's just done.
And it happened much quicker than it would have happened here. Here, because when you were talking about his death row, I didn't react at all because I was waiting because I am so conditioned for death row things to take 20 to 30 years to get done.
Right, but this is the Soviet Union first.
Correct. And that's what really kind of threw me off is I didn't know how quick that was going to happen. So,
Well, they denied his one appeal. So there was that. To be fair, this guy, he did it. There's no reason for a lengthy appeal process, but you're right. Here in the US, he'd probably still be alive. Unless he did it in Texas.
it's true. Yep.
So yeah, that's the whole insane case of Anatoly Slivko, who is clearly the worst example of the deadly sin of lust.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Real
Yeah.
fucking bad one there.
Yeah, I was sitting there trying to, because there's so many cases you can do for this deadly sin. But as I dug through them and I just got to the part about the boy and the motorcycle and the fire, I was like, this guy is so fucked. I have to do this one for lust.
Yeah, that was nuts. That's a new trigger that I have never even considered.
Yeah, like it's funny because you gotta wonder like psychologically where that comes from. Because, like, for example, I have exes who wore particular perfumes. If I smell those perfumes today, I'm instantly reminded of those women. And that's true of a lot
Makes
of us.
sense.
Yeah. What was it about gasoline? It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
Like-
I guess we truly don't know.
Right, but maybe so I go back to maybe the children who pushed him out of that hiding place, maybe he was considered the weird kid because they knew something about him that maybe he didn't know about himself. And
You know,
Ooh,
could
that's an
be.
interesting one. Okay.
Right.
I didn't even think of that.
And maybe while he's hiding, looking at that mutilated corpse, he could, I'm assuming you're smelling fire and burning fuel. I mean, it's a war zone,
True.
you know? So maybe there was something, he's a little boy, or at least young-ish. I don't know, maybe there was something in that moment that was conflicting for him. He's both afraid for his life, but so I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out where that comes from. And that's the only place I can find it. But I don't know.
Yeah. I think
Crazy.
the answer often is there's fucking no way to know.
Yeah, that's so true. And like we always want to know why, but that's the crazy part of a lot of these cases is there really isn't a reason why. They're just fucked up.
Yeah.
It always is interesting though when you do find out the why and what caused it and all of that.
Yeah, and well, on the ones that you can get that answer, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, obviously that I figured that was implied.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
feel like it's more comforting to us when we can see the reasons behind it and not think that violence is random and could happen to anyone.
Yeah, like I just think about, if I ever snapped, would I recognize that I was snapping? And I think I would because I've never committed those kind of violent acts. But I don't know, like I think you're right. I think there's a lot to be said in that. Like, could we ourselves fall prey to something like that?
Well, and
Right,
also
which
I
like so many
believe
of us think that there are things that we wouldn't fall prey to, but then, things like cults exist and people who think, oh, I would never fall for that, and then people do.
Yeah, cults are scary shit.
They really are.
Huh.
All right, guys. So that is it for our Halloween countdown of the 7 deadly sins. Thank you all for joining us all week.
It's been one hell of a ride.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun. We had fun doing these cases. Thank you two for joining me and sharing the responsibility of
Oh,
presenting.
of course.
That was
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, it's sure been a spooky fucking week.
Yes, it has. It's been a long, spooky week, hasn't it?
Long spooky week.
Awesome. So thank you guys. We'll see you. We actually won't post a new episode tomorrow, the 1st, because we just gave you 7 days of episodes. So we'll see you in just over a week on the 8th. So thank you again. I'm Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson dead.
And I'm Joyous dead.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye.